What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is Thursday, January 20th, and we're getting closer to the divisional games because this weekend on CBS, the NFL divisional round presented by Intuit TurboTax Live begins Saturday at 4:30 Eastern with Joe Burrow and the Red Hot Bengals headed to Tennessee for a meeting with the top-seeded Titans. Then on Sunday at 6:30 Eastern, it's a highly anticipated rematch for the ages when Josh Allen and the unstoppable Bills offense take on the equally unstoppable Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. We'll get you set for both games on the NFL Today, the NFL divisional round presented by Intuit TurboTax Live this weekend on CBS. If you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/pick6, smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe and turn on alerts. You'll be alerted when we go live. We go live basically after every playoff game. So we'll be, or playoff, set of playoff games. And hit that 5-star rating if you're listening on Spotify. Joining us to go over some coaching news, one the only Josina Anderson. Josina, what's up?
Well, I was going to put back on my red suit that I had on for my HQ hit. And then I decided, you know what? No, I'm comfortable. This is why I'm talking to Will. So I don't feel like doing this. So hopefully on your pod, you're welcoming me with my my
Juicy Couture.
This is vintage back in the day, reminiscent of a little J-Lo type thing. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, hey, look, yeah. Hey, look, it's very, very apparent on that this podcast is casual. I hope that is obvious. I'm wearing
a knit cap indoors.
It's very cold in my office.
Okay. This explains the knit cap indoors.
Yeah. Well, so I don't have central heat or air up because it's like an above garage apartment type thing.
Okay. Or you didn't pay your heating bill.
Yeah, or that. Yeah. Well, I have like a gas fireplace that I could turn on, but it gets it where it's like almost like too hot in here. And then and I like to kind of bundle up in the winter for the playoff games.
So what does your wife think about you wearing the knit cap indoors?
She makes fun of me all the time. But I'll wear it like downstairs in the house, like just in like 70-degree warmth. Like I'll just be walking around it. If she thinks she's just gotten, I think she's moved past it, honestly. It's like what's.
I mean, clearly you're so used to this, like you don't even really notice the fact that you're doing this podcast with the knit cap indoors.
That is correct. I do not flinch when it comes to wearing a knit cap indoors.
Okay.
All right, let's get to the business. Nobody cares about my fashion, but they do care about the NFL coaching carousel. We have 8. It looks like we're probably going to have 8 openings. Rich Bisaccia has interviewed for the Raiders job. And by the way, we said, yep, this will probably be a slow carousel. Nope. You still get a third of the league turns over no matter how many people get hired each year. It's amazing.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Will, because at the time when everyone was focusing on the Jaguars and the Raiders, obviously the two ones that had the vacancies during the regular season, NFL source that I speak to, who's been in the league, dealing with the league for over 2 decades, talks to all of these various owners. Right. And I said this on HQ like 3 weeks or so before the end of the season. He said there will be the same number of openings, anywhere from 6 to 8 going into the season. And he also said, you remember, like we look at this like, none of us are millionaires or billionaires, or I don't know, Will, if you're hiding any money in the Cayman Islands, whatever. I am not a 2 comma person.
I am also not a 2. No, I'm married with a child. I'm not a 2 comma person. Although I am going to the Cayman Islands in a few months.
Are you really?
Not to pick up a mysterious stash of money.
Oh, okay, yeah. We don't want it to be that one.
As far as you or any federal
Gene, what is that movie with Gene Hackman and
The Firm?
Tom Cruise? There you go. Yeah. So I don't know if you're going to the Cayman Islands to do anything like that.
No.
There you go. But anyway, so he said to me that these owners don't, flinch when it comes to the fact that they're billionaires. If they want to make a change, the money that they have to spend to do these and pay out coaches is still relatively couch money. So he was still on the money with respect to the number of vacancies. But really, even I would say, Will, as a reporter covering these, I was just telling this to my Texan source and whoever I was talking to just leading up into the show. And I was just like, it's too much. It's too much right now. There's too many interviews whatever. I was basically like, everybody just talk to me when you're down to the finalists, because it's almost too much to keep up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even the general managers on top. And then on top of that, the teams that are also interviewing general managers going around to the second round. You've got the Giants supposedly down to, Ryan Poles and Schoen and what have you. We'll see what the Vikings do. And interestingly enough, yesterday, just to add this in here before you, interject here, but somebody, I won't say the coach's name, and maybe I'll tweet this out, but someone was telling me that there's a candidate out there who would prefer to be paired with Dorsey. And I thought that was very interesting because I don't know if I brought this up with you last week. I was just like, the one thing that's very interesting with all of these candidates is that none of them have been general managers before.
Right.
And so while like a team like the Giants is looking for a clear direction moving forward after Dave Gettleman and Judge, it's interesting still that the organization is going to go into the hands of somebody who still hasn't done it before. And I can understand why this coach would like to be paired with Dorsey, because say what you want with regards to the Cleveland Browns, when you look at his draft record and the talent that he has brought into the various teams that he's worked with, you can't argue with that.
Oh, I mean, Dorsey, things didn't end well in Cleveland, and things didn't really end well in Kansas City, but Dorsey secures talent. I mean, the Browns built their foundation. He did draft Baker, which, I guess is anyway.
No. I still, going back then, I don't have a problem with Baker relative to the talent and all the things that were said at the time. And I still like his moxie. That's a whole, different conversation, but all in all, he is strong when it comes to bringing in the talent and assessing the talent.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Okay. So just looking around, no, I mean, I agree with you completely, but, so looking at, is it a veteran coach who wants to be paired with Dorsey or a new guy?
No, veteran coach.
Okay, yeah.
You would have the mindset to
look
think
for
about
Dorsey,
that.
right.
And some of these teams and where that's coming from, just to illuminate that a little bit, is that some of these teams are obviously asking their preferences. It doesn't mean that they'll go in that direction. It doesn't necessarily mean this, person will get hired or not. We'll see, and we can have that conversation too, where you're hearing certain names of people associated with teams, whether you agree with that or not, or just based on kind of the matchmaking game, Love Connection, who was our guy back in the day, the 2 and 2 who did that, who was that? We'll be back in 2 and 2 with the Love Connection, Chuck Woolery or whatever his name was.
That's it. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
We've been playing that, who do we think, who do we think should go, and who do we think will get picked? But who would you match with? The teams that are open is basically what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Let's look at Denver really quick, because I think that's an interesting job with the ownership change coming at some point. We know that they've already interviewed Jonathan Gannon, Luke Getsy, Aaron Glenn, Nathaniel Hackett. I think we talked about this, right? The two Packers guys are on the list, which makes sense from a like if Rodgers is going to bounce, we'd like to know. Gerard Mayo, Kellen Moore, and Dan Quinn. So multiple Cowboys, multiple Packers in terms of their interviewees, and they've also requested Eric Bieniemy, Brian Callahan, and Kevin O'Connell. Have you heard anything?
I'm saying, Will, it's too many names. Oh my God, you just named like half the coaches in the NFL. Go ahead.
I mean, it is actually 8 interviews and then 3 more requests. I mean, that's 11 interviews. Like, if I get that it's good that you want to hear from as many people.
No, you should be thorough, but from a reporting standpoint.
Didn't you have an idea of who you might want to hire? Like, didn't you have I feel like you have a short list and that's how you do it, but maybe.
Well, part of it is intel gathering. Part of it is, for future things. And so it's not that I have a problem with it being thorough. All I'm saying is from a reporting standpoint, talk to me at the second round and after, because this first round is just like, it's almost like with the field of 64 with March Madness. It's just too much right now.
It's like a spray and pray type of thing where they're just trying to get as many guys in the building as they can, right? Well, what do you think their sort of direction is? They have a GM in place in George Payton. He was in Minnesota when they hired Mike Zimmer. I don't know that necessarily gives any real indication as to what what he might do in terms of hiring his own guy, but it does seem like he is. I guess he's trying both sides. I mean, Jonathan Gannon, Mayo, we're talking about defensive guys, and Dan Quinn, of course, and then several offensive guys as well. Do you have a sense on how that search is sort of going?
So I have talked to a source who went through one of those interviews and just talking to some people around the situation. And one of the things that they told me that stuck out to them, even though it is somewhat of a football cliche, is that
A leader of
the
men?
leader of men, that they are looking, and and that they're not necessarily offense oriented or defense oriented. And this person came away very, very impressed with the general manager, George Payton, not Patton, even though it looks like Patton. I have to keep telling myself that even when I say it, because I can't say it how it looks. And so that was that. But obviously, there's been a lot of talk as far as the Broncos and their affinity, for Dan Quinn. A lot of people think that this is the way that it's going to go. Will allow the Broncos to get through the entire process. Obviously, it is hard to not notice the way in which Dan Quinn helped to really galvanize the Cowboys defense, the energy that he has. It kind of reminds me similar to Robert Saleh when he was just constantly taking photographs of on the sidelines and
That's
so
yeah,
I mean, so that it's kind of the same thing.
Dan Quinn was getting the camera love every week. With the back of the pad out there, like, chilling up in the box. Yeah, that's
So should we as media people, should we get a stipend, when that happens, like basically we help you get the job?
Yeah. Dan, you owe CBS or I guess Fox because it's the Cowboys.
I'm just saying, all that camera time, and then you get the job or whatever. So these are the things that you hear. But here again, with the defensive candidates, they still have to come into this interview with a strong plan as to what they're going to do on the offensive side of the ball.
Right.
And from Dan Quinn, I'm sure he had to go into that interview explaining what is it that he has learned since his time with the Atlanta Falcons, subsequently firing all three coordinators, and what he was very vocal about at the outset of him taking the job with the Dallas Cowboys, which was all the self-evaluation, self-scouting he did of himself coaching, to really and asking other people around the league what they thought of his coaching and certain things like that, and using all that intel in terms of how he was able to corral the Cowboys defense. So I would not be surprised there. But again, with all of the teams that have a very huge question mark at quarterback, it's not just about being a rah-rah and, galvanizing that defense. The offense is not the one, the defense rather is not the one throwing the ball.
Right. It doesn't, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be that difficult to get, to make the Broncos defense be effective. I mean, like I feel like anybody can do that. It's figuring out how to handle this offensive situation and where to find a quarterback, what your options are. And, certainly if they thought that they could be in on Aaron Rodgers, that's why they're, Nathaniel Hackett makes a lot of sense, because if Aaron Rodgers does decide he wants to leave Green Bay, and I don't think he will, but things can certainly change on the fly, depending on what happens this weekend in the playoff games, then having a comfort level somewhere else would be kind of paramount for that.
It definitely helps, but at the same time, you have to weigh both sides of the ball are important. So and you can't have Dan Quinn and Hackett.
Right.
So is there because Aaron Rodgers is such a quote unquote controller of the offense, if I'm A-Rod, I'm thinking, okay, is there, and I was thinking about flirting over here with the possibility of going to Green Bay. Would there be a way to get DQ or someone, who has this prowess on defense and somebody out there, on offense, from a coordinating standpoint that would make you feel, comfortable? And obviously one of the names that are rolling out there too is what's going on with Pep Hamilton and all these other things. People wondering, why isn't he getting bumped up to the offensive coordinator level or head coach, just based on the clear results that keep happening with the places that he goes. You know what I mean? That's another conversation in and of itself. Mm-hmm.
Is it weird to you that the Bears and Giants, they're like, our organization we hire a general manager, and that general manager hires the coach, and then the coach reports to the general manager.
Is that how they sound? Is that how they sound? Is that how Mara sounds? Okay.
No, that's
is that your Mara impression? Or
no. Mara would be like, so we're gonna. That was my George McCaskey impression.
Oh, okay. I wasn't clear. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I was
like, no breaking news again.
No breaking news this week. No.
Okay.
No breaking news.
Okay.
You don't even want to know. It's stupid.
Okay.
It involves a golf ball and water.
Okay.
At any rate, is it surprising to you that they're, I mean, it seems a little counterintuitive that they interview the coaches and before they do the GM process, but I guess maybe they want to narrow down their list or get comfortable with some of the candidates. I always feel like, when they tell they tell the fans, like, here's how we're going to do it. And then they go out and do something different. It's like, you've already found some coaches you like. You're now going to foist these coaches onto this GM when you're going to find a GM who likes the coaches you already like. It seems, I don't know. It seems like the process.
Well, a lot of it is information gathering, what people are comfortable with. Can the organization be comfortable with it too? And at the same time, at least in the Giants example, they're in the midst of trying to, shed their whole skin with how they've been doing things in the past, right? And get themselves comfortable with going out of the organization or going away from the people that they have typically felt comfortable with, or that their evaluation process has led to the Ben McAdoo's, the Pat Shermers, the Joe Judge. So what is it about that they like those candidates and are a part of that process that they need to change? And it is very hard to just wait and be completely tunnel visioned on hiring a GM while all these like 900 NFL teams are in the midst of trying to hurry up and grab a coach, and you're behind, which is why, Will, you and I talked about this last week. That's why it never made sense with the whole thing with Joe Judge. I mean, because you see, as you can see, this stuff takes time, particularly when you're actually trying to do it right.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it is a lengthy process, and you're trying to sort through 11 different candidates or whatever. So any buzz on do we think any teams are close? And are you surprised that nobody's made a formal hire yet? I feel like usually.
With the Texans, and for example, I know that they spoke to Flores, Hines Ward, Lombardi, Jonathan Gannon, and the OC from the Cowboys is supposed to be coming
Kellen
up
Moore.
Storage, yes, at the end of this or what have you. And so what I was told just a couple of days ago, that they're gonna, kind of pause and slow down a little bit, allow the games to happen this weekend and kind of go back into it. I mean, just looking at these names, I think it's pretty, clear that they want, Brian Flores. That's what it looks like just when I'm looking at the list of who they've interviewed so far. Obviously, they're still gonna, I think talk to Mayo and Quinn. I believe they have plans to do that. But it seems like that's the direction that they, would like to
go. The Hines Ward and the Lombardi interviews were like, it's like, what? Like, you did what? They seem like they're like, we gotta up our interview numbers so people don't think we just zeroed in on Brian Flores. Who will take an interview knowing that we were going to hire Flores anyway? I know, Hines Ward. That's like,
I'm not saying that for the people out there. I'm going to allow you do your color and all that other stuff. But here's the thing. I think the better question is, will Flores take this job? And is it the best situation for him, especially coming out of what happened in Miami, right? So when you're on now let's stop. I'm gonna come over there in a second. Sorry, talking to my dog. Wait a minute. Right. When you're on your second stint, okay, you have to be very mindful of the perception that's going to emanate from that second stint relative to what people think of you as a head coach. So if this doesn't go right for Brian Flores, could taint the perception of him as a head coach. So he has to be very careful. So if you're Flores, Will, does he have another interview with the Giants, I believe? Or who else is the other team? That's correct.
I mean, the bottom line is, if you're Flores and you take the Texans job, yes, you have some familiarity and comfort with Nick Caserio, who they've spoken highly of each other, and then Jack Easterby too. But, you just got fired 3 years into, a successful run in Miami. There's nothing to say that you can't be fired if the Texans stink for 3 years, and the Texans might stink for 3 years. And it doesn't sound like Deshaun Watson would be enticed by.
And let me clarify that for you real quickly. Yeah. All right. So for those of people out there, and I haven't even had a chance to tweet about this, whatever, because but I'm on your show, so we'll talk about it. So the Brian Flores thing and the Watson thing. All right. From my understanding, there's not like this ongoing relationship and need to be tied or what have you.
Right.
Like, and Watson's situation with the Texans was never about the coach, Cully, or what have you. It's not about that. So
It's about the owner.
Just take away the whole, connection of Watson wants to go with Flores, and that's why he's coming to the Dolphins. I was just told a few days ago, nix all of that. That has nothing to do with anything. So all of that is separate. And of course, Watson, to my understanding, is his situation relative to wanting out of Houston has not changed.
Gotcha. And that's important because, if Flores is thinking about taking the Texans job, and I don't know what else you would do if you're Flores. Like, you've got to, I mean, you could wait and you could try and see if Belichick will have you back in New England. If you don't think you could sit out a year, if you don't think the Texans job is the right one to have, I don't think you should definitely take it. Like, if you don't think you can win, or win, or start to turn the Texans around, then I think you have to be careful about it because, with the way that, with the way that things go in the NFL, it's entirely possible that in 3 years, Cal McNair clears house, and gets rid of everybody. And then you're gone too. And like you say, the perception after that second job, if you get fired from that, it becomes very, very difficult to flip it around. All right,
and really quick before you take that break, is that I just want to say, so he has to weigh his options, carefully. And just because there's a high affinity for him in Houston, and that's great. I mean, on one hand, when the bar is low relative to the amount of wins that a team is just coming off of, theoretically that amounts to having more leash in terms of time to turn over the season and longevity for the coach. But at the same time, as we all know, the patience in the NFL can still starts off long, and then it can get short relative to the talk around the team, how the fans are reacting. So if there's an opportunity there potentially with the Bears or the Giants or what have you, comparing that situation to what you've got in Houston. And the only thing too with the Giants is what I say about that opportunity that I've been saying is that the offense with the Giants is still very concerning for me in terms of what the plan is there.
Oh, yeah.
Daniel Jones, Saquon not being Saquon so far, and even having that Achilles injury to Sterling Shepard and guys like that.
Yep. No, I mean, it's both those jobs, New York and Houston, are, you are not easy.
Need
jobs.
work. They need work.
Need a lot of work. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the Broncos, you find a quarterback and you plug him in and it works. I know that's easier said than done. But yeah, I mean, it's the Texans and the Giants jobs are not good.
Tougher.
Tougher. Yes. The uphill battles. You're fighting uphill battle. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, what coaching candidates who are still in the playoffs have the best chances to get hired next? So there are lots of coaching candidates still remaining in the postseason. Of the group, Leslie Frazier, Todd Bowles, Byron Leftwich, Nathaniel Hackett, we mentioned, Brian Callahan, Mike McDaniel, who's white hot now because of his goofy little press conferences. D'Amico Ryans, Kevin O'Connell, Brian Daboll, Eric Bieniemy, just to name a few. Josina, what coaching candidates stand that are still in the postseason, whose teams are still playing, stand out to you? Obviously, the old not these guys aren't, this isn't like Brian Kelly bolting Notre Dame in the middle of the season. These guys aren't leaving the playoffs to go take a new job. They're going to coach with their team. So that's why maybe we've seen a little bit slower of a process because of all the coaches, right?
Well, yes, and you have to wait for them to get through their their games, the playoffs, and the other thing. But here's one thing that I want to kind of put on people's not necessarily news, but what I think could be an interesting thing if the 49ers win. If D'Amico Ryans' defense does really well against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, this is someone's stock who could just, go up, not maybe exponentially, but definitively after that game. D'Amico Ryans has been doing a really great job with that 49ers defense. Mm-hmm. They play with a lot of energy, kind of similar to what you saw with his predecessor and Robert Saleh. And not only that, but they play with this physicality, and that could really be on display in this game against Aaron Rodgers, particularly if you go back to the Packers game against the Browns, where the Browns almost beat Green Bay. Should have beat Green Bay if it hadn't been for, I can go pull up that box score, however many mistakes by Baker Mayfield in that game, but a good blueprint for what, could be successful against that team. So I think that is one to watch that could further add more of a monkey wrench to all of these hirings and decisions that have to be done by these various teams. And I just think, what's going to go on with the Raiders, what's going to go on with Harbaugh. A lot of people still want to connect them to Las Vegas and, Todd Bowles as Eberflus, with Chicago, or Brian Flores going to be able to, come in there with Chicago. So many different things to watch. And I think it's very interesting that even out of all of these conversations that, Josh McDaniels' name is not involved in any of them.
Yeah.
And then also Bieniemy, I think, just is connected to the one job in Denver as far as the interview. So very interesting in terms of what names are getting called, what names are not. Some people have their opinions about the offensive coordinator in Dallas getting all these various interviews, especially after that last play in the game. What are your thoughts?
I am surprised that people are that high on Kellen Moore. And I mean, I understand why people, it's sort of the Sean McVay factor, right? Like
everyone still keeps looking for the next Sean McVay, right?
It's what it is. Young, up and coming offensive coordinator, bright-minded, like explosive offense, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, like, it is weird. Like I haven't been easy on Mike McCarthy at all, but I mean, it's like, is everything just going to be Mike McCarthy's fault and like all the good plays are Kellen Moore's plays? I mean, because that seems a little, that's a little unfair relative to what, like, how the, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do we decide who gets blamed for what? I mean, Mike McCarthy definitely deserves blame. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, I mean, Kellen Moore's offense too. It's not just Mike McCarthy.
But let me ask you this, Will. If Jerry Jones, and he has said that Mike McCarthy is still his guy, if Mike McCarthy were not going to be the head coach of that team, and all of a sudden the owner said, okay, you know what, we changed our mind, just kidding, would you be comfortable handing over the head coaching job from the Dallas Cowboys to Kellen?
I mean, I wouldn't, but I think Jerry Jones would. I think that's the question. Would he even get his own vacancy? Well, the thing is with Kellen Moore, Jerry Jones is obsessed with, he has like a major FOMO when it comes to like anybody he finds, like Tony Romo, Dak Prescott, Jason Garrett, Kellen Moore. Like he, even if he accidentally stumbled into all these guys, he believes, he's like, oh, I found this talent. Like my genius brain allowed me to discover these brilliant people. Like I got to keep them around. I think he would be, if Kellen Moore got offered the Broncos head coaching job, I think Jerry would be petrified at the idea of losing him and him doing really well somewhere else, and might still consider firing Mike McCarthy. And the same thing might go with Dan Quinn. I mean, also you have to wonder, how is Mike McCarthy going to be if he loses both his coordinators this offseason? That's tough. That's tough for any coach. But it's like the Dallas defense regresses because Dan Quinn bolts, and bringing in a Mike Nolan type. I mean, it's not going to work. Like I just think I think that is still very much in play. I don't necessarily think that we can definitively say, okay, Jerry is locked into Mike McCarthy.
Well, and the other thing too is, and there's so many different layers and topics to this conversation. And we talked about the coaches that have the energy and the favoritism from the media with how they're showed. And then you have some of the coaches who have the personalities that are more quiet, and they're not as, out there with their personalities, whether it be the Leslie Frazier's or the Jim Caldwell's or what have you, or even Brian Dabble to a certain extent. You don't really, see him
Byron
like that.
Byron Leftwich to a degree. I mean,
so and this is what we get caught up in sometimes when you're making hires, and then next thing you know, you're giving these coaches 5-year contracts. You fire them after 2 years. You owe them $15 million, and you keep repeating the cycle over and over and over again. Right. So maybe
Todd Bowles, another guy who's like very quiet and
very quiet. So what are you looking for? Did we just lose Will? Are you looking for a coach that is magnetic and charismatic? Or are you looking for one that is giving you results, or can you get it in the same combination? That's all. There you go. There you're back.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't know. My browser didn't even crash. It was just really weird. got popped out of there.
I was like, okay, all of a sudden
Great
you
job
seem
by
like
you continuing your answer.
I figured you were coming back in, you know what I'm saying?
I'm out. All right. So I would say that I think that we
But what do
see,
you think about that? I mean, as far as like you mentioned, the Todd Bowles, the Caldwells, who else is Leslie Frazier, Dabo, some of these coaches that are not as TV magnetic
yeah,
and as loud and vocal
yeah,
or doing all these
boisterous,
interviews,
right?
yes, boisterous or what have you, versus some of these other coaches
Yeah.
that have more, reputation. Because it's hard to argue with the way Leslie Frazier's defense is playing. Oh, by the way, without Tre'Davious White,
Yeah.
the fact that they have been, holding that together, losing their top corner, I believe, I don't know, what is it, week 12 or week whatever,
Yeah.
he went down
And,
with the
and they've
torn
still been good
ACL.
down the
Yeah.
stretch, right? I
Mhm.
think a lot might depend, honestly, on this weekend, and that seems, I don't know if that seems obvious or not, but one, you're going to have, like, if the Chiefs, let's say the Chiefs win, Eric Bieniemy's going to be probably, tough luck for another year, just because if the Chiefs go to, if somebody goes to the Super Bowl, it's just harder. I think teams are like, don't want to try and wait out and miss out on other stuff. So like Eric Bieniemy, maybe he's out of luck, or maybe he ends up going to Denver if they really like him, Colorado guy. But like if the Bills win and beat the Chiefs, and like the Bills defense holds Patrick Mahomes to 20 points or something like that, I think there's a really good chance that Leslie Frazier ends up getting a job. Just because people are going to say, wow, like look at what they are doing, without Trey White, the way that they're coached up. Same thing, Todd Bowles in that divisional round, or I mean the wild card round, excuse me, against, I know Philadelphia, not a very good team in hindsight, but like he was just effing with Jalen Hurts' mind and Nick Sirianni's like game plan. He was dropping Vita Vea into coverage. He was sending all kinds of pressures, and like the Eagles had no idea what they were doing. And you see that something like that happen, and you're like, all right, like maybe Todd Bowles does need another shot. Like if Todd Bowles comes to coach your team, your defense is gonna, if you have defensive pieces, it's gonna be good. Like he's a great defensive coach.
Well, and the thing about Todd Bowles is that he relishes that. Like he's so quiet. And when he used to be the head coach of the Jets, I would always call him Steel Jaw Todd, because he has that strong jaw that they always showing on the sideline.
He's like sneaky funny and also like kind of a smack talker. Like he just doesn't love the like doing the media stuff and isn't
no,
very like outgoing.
He thinks the questions are dumb.
Yeah.
But
he's not wrong most of the time.
Yeah. but he loves, just holding stuff back during a regular season, unleashing stuff. And you mentioned how they were toying with Jalen Hurts, and they took their foot off the gas in the middle of that game because they totally did. So he relishes that opportunity to bring it when everybody is watching or what have you. And if he can have another gauntlet run similar to what they did in the postseason last year, where they went through, what was it? Who were the three quarterbacks? It was Breeze, it was Rodgers, and the three quarterbacks that they defeated all the way
Mahomes.
To the Super Bowl. Again,
if they make another deep run like that, and the Bucs have to lean on their defense because for whatever reason, like Brady's just not putting up big numbers again, then there's a very, very good chance that Todd Bowles will get a head coaching job. So that's what I'm sort of saying is like, if the Rams offense gets shut down this weekend, then Todd Bowles' name is going to shoot up. So likewise, if the 49ers go and just run the ball like crazy all over Green Bay, you're going to see Mike McDaniel's name, sort of shoot up the list of what people are interested in. Same thing if D'Amico Ryans, as you point out, if the 49ers
strong performance against Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think that the quarterbacks and the teams involved in this divisional round are so significant with these matchups that you could really see one or two of these coaches sort of vault themselves up. Like, Buffalo has a great game plan on offense. Josh Allen beats the Bills, and Brian Daboll should get some more love.
I'm telling you, I'm just talking to me about that 49ers game, with that defense. The only and I would say the only caveat is Jimmy Garoppolo and the right shoulder injury that he suffered in the second quarter against the Cowboys and what have you. But just yesterday, Garoppolo said he was feeling fine right now. Mike McDaniel said he's not concerned about it. I was at the the 2 games ago, I was in LA when everyone was like, oh, is Jimmy G going to play? He comes out and they started off shaky, but finished really, really strong and definitive in that game. So, and he has that confidence of a quarterback who has been to the Super Bowl before. And I tell you, mentally, when you get to these pressure games, that is a lot to be able to rely on. We saw the complete unraveling of a Kyler Murray when you don't have those experiences to rely on. So this is really kind of teeing up for the things that I'm talking about to happen with the 49ers. So we'll see.
All right. All right. So in other words, coaching news will come slowly, it appears, because a lot of these candidates are still in the playoffs.
Oh,
keep an eye
totally.
keep an eye on what these guys do this weekend, because it will certainly affect their
perceptions.
Their perception of them in the job market. All right, Josina, as always, a pleasure. We have 4 games this weekend, and we will be down to 4 teams left.
Please tell the people who run your airport in your state, if there's any ice that comes, to not freak out again. Okay?
That's right. Yeah, good luck with that. All right. Well,